Jacqueline, and I am back answering your questions about habits and consistency and really making 2021 a year of growth. No matter what is happening in the world, taking that time for yourself to make sure it's still a year of growth for you. So, the question I have today, it is, how many habits should we try to break at once? Or I guess I should say, how many new habits should we implement at a time? I really struggled with this question. My first, like, my gut reaction is one new habit. You should start with one new habit and focus on one new habit. And then I was like, but I know that I'm not just focusing on one new habit. And then I had like this, like, oh, am I not pushing people enough if I tell them to just work on one new thing? And I was like going back and forth about it. And so I kind of like put off answering this question because I didn't know how I wanted to answer it. And I kind of I dug a little bit deeper and I was like, okay, cool. I know that for me, I am working on more than one new habit during my day. But I also know that my life is not as stressful. I don't have as many stressors as a lot of you have. I know that when I was a teacher and I was in the classroom, my life was very stressful. I know that, when I was commuting, life was very stressful. Right now, I am working from home in a house that is warm. We're no longer living in a studio apartment. We have space. My husband and I can move around. We have a lot of space. So a lot of those stressors that maybe I've had in the past, I no longer have that. My life is not as chaotic as it was 7 years ago. I don't have kids. My life is not as chaotic. I get to pick and choose the clients that I work with. I get to pick and choose the people who I interact with. I don't pick people. I don't accept clients that it's not a good fit. It's like, no, I don't think we're going to work together. I only work with people that I love and I know that this is going to be a good interaction. And so I don't have that stressor of being around people. And so this isn't me trying to be boastful, but this is I know that for me, because my life is not as chaotic as it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago, even 2 years ago, because my life is not as chaotic, it's not as stressful. I've kind of crafted my life to be this way. I know that it's a little bit easier for me to start implementing different changes because I don't have as many people pulling at me. So when I think about who is my audience, who's listening to the podcast, who's in my Facebook group, who are the people on my email list that are asking these questions, it's I really do need to think about what is the answer that they need to hear? What is the answer that is going to be helpful for them? And not tell them to go way over the top and oh, you can do 7 million new habits, and not just a blanket statement of no, just one new habit, right? It's it's not black and white. There's definitely some gray area in there. And but let's see. What I want to do is talk a little bit more about ZPD, Zone of Proximal Development. And I talked about this on the video, I think 2 days ago. And I think that if we start to consider this is going to help you figure this out for yourself. And then I'll go through some suggestions as well. But in this inner circle here, so this tiny circle, it's all of the things that you can do on your own. So I'm going to give you some examples, but it's you can shower on your own. You can brush your teeth, and not just the ability to, but you're actually doing these things on your own. You're getting up and you're showering on your own. You're putting on clothes on your own. You're brushing your teeth on your own without someone telling you that you have to do these things. Then there are things that you can do with help. Maybe you're working with a coach, or you're working with a personal trainer, or whatever, your manager, whatever it is. There are things that you need support from someone else in order to get these things done. Then there are things that are way outside of this. Nope, it doesn't matter. This is the panic zone. Even if someone were to help you with these things, they're not things that you are able to do on your own. We're not going to work this. And I guess that's the thing, is that people, it's they're here in this tiny circle and they try to go and do 8 million different things that, it's how it's not even planned into your day, or you don't know the steps to take to do those things. But we hear so many stories about these people who went from 0 to 100. We think that that's how transformation works, is jumping from this tiny circle to go out of your comfort zone and making this giant leap. But that's not how transformation works. I mean, there's that saying of like success is, 10 years in the making. It takes a long time for these things. And so if we think about that and we go back to the question, how many new habits? It's like whatever you're able to actually withstand, whatever you're able to actually implement. If your life is really stressful, like let's just pretend that you have kids, you have a job, maybe you have to interact on Zoom a lot more, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of screen time, blah, blah, like maybe it's not the time to try to do 8 million different things, but you're like, cool, I am going to start with one new thing. And once that becomes automatic, once I am doing that, and it's actually a habit, it's automatic, then I can start to widen this a little bit and put some more focus in learning how to do something else and making it, incorporating it into your life. So now it is an actual habit, something that you do automatically. It's just a part of who you are and who you're being. So how do we decide? So I think we would start with the question, how chaotic is your life right now? How stressed are you? Answering those two questions, how chaotic and how stressed is life, how stressed are you? Answering those two questions is going to give us some insight into what habits to start taking on. Because if your life is super, super stressful, it is not the time to start tracking every calorie you eat. If your life is super, super stressful, it's not the time to go to a 90-minute HIIT workout. It's not. We want to implement things that are going to help you reduce stress. We want to implement things that are going to help make your life less chaotic, help your life feel more streamlined. I can think back to probably 8 years ago, 7, 6, 8, I think 8 years ago, the first time that I worked with a personal trainer. And I was teaching and had probably like 34 kindergartners, and no assistants, no help. And I was like in my 20s and I was just so stressed out. The workday was so chaotic, and probably had like a terrible commute and just like all of these things, all of this chronic, persistent like stress happening. And I remember thinking, so the school was going to hire some help, some assistants, the teacher's assistants. And I remember thinking, okay, great. Once that person is hired, things will be calmer. Things will be less chaotic. It will be less stressful. Once that happens, then I'll start tracking my calories, like my personal trainer at the time wanted me to be doing. Well, what happened was I thought that things were going to be less stressful once they hired. It actually became more stressful because now I'm someone in my 20s handling like 34 kindergartners and also having to manage another adult who's new on a job and needs assistance to know what they have to do. So life actually increased stress. And I'm going to see a personal trainer who's trying to help me get healthier. And the personal trainer is telling me to track every bite I eat. I'm like, track every bite? Like I'm barely eating. I'm not even eating during the day. I'm like rushing around. You want me to sit down and write down what I'm going to eat? That's ridiculous. That was not what I needed to make my life healthier. That was not what I needed to make my life more less chaotic, more streamlined, less stressful. What I needed was to learn how to take time for myself. I probably needed someone to say like, hey, you're not taking time to eat. Who cares what you're eating right now? Let's just make sure that you, during your lunch period, you are actually, eating something. You're taking that time, you're closing the door, you're setting boundaries, and you're saying like, actually, I do need to eat a lunch, or actually I'm going to go out for a walk. Those are some habits that I could have started implementing that would have helped me reduce stress. Not tracking every bite that I was eating during that stressful time. I think something else, going to the next thing I have written up here, is how is your sleep? Answering that question. This is a habit that's going to be monumental in helping your life be less chaotic, feel better. A lot of people have terrible habits when it comes to sleep, and we like downplay how important sleep is. We're like, man, I want to get healthy, I'm going to do a Whole30. Man, I want to get healthy, I'm going to start counting calories with Noom. Or, man, I want to get healthy, I'm going to run a marathon or run 100 days in a row. Great. Yeah, exercise and food is important, but also if you do not have quality sleep and you have terrible sleep hygiene, You're sitting in your bed with your phone and scrolling and looking at that blue light, and you have constant anxious thoughts running in your head about the next workday. If that is what your sleep hygiene looks like, it doesn't even matter what you're trying to attempt with food and exercise, it's not going to pan out. It's not going to go the way that you want. So that would be my suggestion too, is like, if you want to start a new habit, you're like, cool, I want to start breaking some habits. Let's start with sleep and start setting some really good sleep habits, some really good sleep routines. Deciding like, hey, I need to be up at 6 a.m. and if I need to be up at 6 a.m., I do best when I have 7 hours of sleep, or 7.5 hours of sleep, or 8 hours, whatever it is. I don't do well when I have 5 hours of sleep. When I'm on 5 hours of sleep, I am moving towards drinking a lot of coffee and eating a lot of quick carbs. I need to prioritize sleep. And so see what that does. If you start to prioritize sleep and getting quality sleep and setting really good habits around your sleep routine, you don't have to deal so much with like, oh, I shouldn't drink that coffee, or I shouldn't eat those potato chips. You're going to start to like be proactive instead of reactive. So how many habits to start? I would start with making sure that you have quality sleep. And then the last thing on here I have is how are your mornings? I know for me and for a lot of people, if you really hate your job, if you really hate what you do for 10 hours a day, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxious thoughts happening as you're going to bed, because you don't want to wake up to start the day, because you're just like, here's where my to-do list starts. Here's, now my whole day is pouring all of my time and energy to these people and to these services and to these things that I don't want to really be doing. So on the one hand, it's like, ooh, do you need to start creating a new career? But in the meantime, cool, we can't change everything in your life at once. What is something that you can do first thing in the morning so that you're doing something for yourself? Again, going back to 7 or 8 years ago, the only advice I had was, start tracking calories. And it's like, well, no, I should have been making sure that I was getting quality sleep. That would have helped me be a better person. That would have helped me probably be a better teacher when I showed up and not be so snappy at my students or colleagues. And then also having something to start the morning with, something that I liked for myself. If I had started the day doing something for myself, I would have been a better person. I would have shown up and been a better person in the world and for the people I was working with, for and with. So yeah, how many new habits? Like, I know that it's the beginning of the year and people really want to get into like the food and exercise stuff. And that I think that stuff is important. But if your sleep and your morning suck and your life is chaotic and you are super, super stressed, the new habit that you want to start with is just making sure that you have quality sleep. That's going to help life feel less chaotic. It's going to help life feel better, more streamlined, more organized. So yeah, let me just make sure I answered the question. Yeah. So, and then going back to the ZPD, remember, just having a list of habits. Here are these 5 new habits that I want to start. You don't need to do that. Just start with one. Get your system in place. I have a card to remind myself, Jacqueline, get your system in place, and then you can add something else. So I think maybe in my mornings, maybe I'm working on a new habit in the morning and a new habit in the afternoon and something new in the evening. But again, I've crafted my life to be less chaotic, less stressful than it was. So I think that that's the thing that we want to do first is, how can we reduce stress? How can we make life less chaotic? That's going to help you feel better, show up in the world, and actually enjoy the life that you're creating. I hope that is helpful. Let me know in the comments, or you can send me an email at coachjacqueline@jacquelinericchio.com. Let me know the new habits that you are going to create around sleep and around your mornings. Remember, you can start with the self-care session. Take care.